In this demo, we're going to look at some of the filtering options available in Adaptable. We get lots of questions from users, from potential users, about ways that they can configure our filtering to meet their precise requirements. A little bit of background first. In Adaptable, there's actually two main ways that you can filter. The first is the filter form. That's available through the column menu, and by default it gives you a list of all the values in the column, which obviously you can choose the ones you need, or it provides a set of filters for each type of thing. So this is a string, for instance, or if I go into the date column, I can see I've got all the values and then I've got all the dates, and then that's the same here. If I go into filters here and I go into trade date and I go into filters, I can see all the system filters that Adaptable applies. So that's the filter form, but in fact in this video we're primarily going to look at the quick filter bar. This is the bar that appears here between the column header and the first row in the grid. If you want to use AG Grid's quick filter, you can, and we allow it and everything works, but this is an alternative for those who prefer some of the functionality that Adaptable provides. And as I say, there's lots of options you can do, so we'll run through some of them here. And in fact, and usually for one of our demos, we're going to just show a little bit of code to show how easy it is to get stuff working. So probably the most common request we get is, can we get rid of this, which some users found quite annoying feature, that as soon as we hover over any quick filter, we immediately see what's available. Some people find that very useful because they can very quickly see what's there, but other people find it irritating. And you can, and the way you do it is in your code. You essentially have a property called quick filter trigger, and then that takes either click or mouse enter. The default's mouse enter, but if we make that click, then you can see you now need to click to enter the quick filter bar. Another very useful feature is wildcards. For instance, if I want to very quickly do greater than 50, I can, if I want, click on here and go to greater than and then type 50. But equally, I can type in the greater than sign, which changes that to greater than, and then 50. And we have a few of those, so I can do equal to UBS just to get those. So we provide a lot of wildcards. But one of the nice things about Adaptable, and this applies for everything we offer, is it's easy for users to also supply their own. So for instance, if rather than equals, you always want, say, not equals, then let's do that. Let's first clear all the filters, and then let's go back to our code. And we will now create a new wildcard. So we'll go into quick filter wildcards. And then we will create one for, say, not equals. It knows it's one of the available ones. And then you can provide an array with as many as you want. So in this case, we will make it the sort of exclamation mark. So if I save that, if I go back here, now if I go into here, as soon as I do my exclamation mark, you can see it's changed to not equals. And now I see the first line's 56. If I do anything that not's 56, I get all of those except that first line and a couple of others. Another nice feature that we can do is this default. So again, if we clear this, you can see that by default, the currency is showing contains. We're seeing that the default for numbers is equals, etc., etc. But you might want a different default. For instance, let's say you often want to see USD. As soon as you type U, you might immediately just want to see USD. You don't want AUD and EUR. And essentially, you might want to start with rather than contains. And again, that's easy to do. So all you have to do is provide the default filter. As you can see, we have a default date, a default numeric, and default string. We want the last one, default string filter. And then it gives you a list of all the filters you can use. We will change that to starts with, save this, and now you'll see that these have now actually changed to starts with, which means that as soon as I type in a U, I'm now only seeing things that start with a U rather than contains a U. One of the nice things about the adaptable filters is that we provide, as I say, two ways of doing filtering. We provide what you might kind of call the predicate way, where you can provide what we call a predicate ID and then a value, or we can just do the old style values. So for instance, if I just want to see CAD, EUR and IRD, I'm able to do that. And this is an in, and you can kind of, again, make that your default if you want. And then again, there's a couple of nice things you can do. For instance, imagine that you've sorted your grid in such a way that USD is the first one. It could either just be a descending sort, or more likely it might be a custom sort where you're sorting a particular column that way. However, when you go into the values, it's doing it alphabetically, which might not be what you want. And again, that's very easy to do. There's a property, I think it's called sort. Here we are, sort column values in filter. Make that true. And now if I go back here, and now if I sort this way, now hopefully when I do this, there indeed, I see it done the way that the column has been sorted. Now, one of the nice things about this is that as soon as I click any of these, the grid immediately filters. You can see we've currently got 202. As soon as I add a new one, for instance, IOD, GBP, EUR, you can see it's going down. However, you might not always want that, because for instance, you might be doing server-side filtering. You might be essentially creating a filter here, but actually carrying it out somewhere else. So you might want, rather than AdapTable applying a filter immediately, only to apply it when you're ready to. And again, you can do that. The default in AdapTable is that we auto apply, but if you make auto apply filter false, then this values filter, and it only applies to the values filter, will only get applied when you now click a button which appears. If I come back into here and I go into values, you can now see we have an apply filter. So even though I've clicked AUD and CHF, nothing has happened, and only when I apply my filter does the grid filter to those two. Another thing which we get asked a lot is, some people love our system filters and they like the fact that we have so many, but sometimes there can be too many. You might want to limit which ones are available. You might not want your users always to filter on kind of quite as many as this. So the question we get is there a way to reduce which filters are available? And the answer is you can. And I've slightly cheated here because I've provided the code, but if I I've not cheated, I've done a blue Peter rather. You can see here that in predicate options, we have a property called System Filter Predicates, and that allows you to essentially say which filters you want to have available. So in this case here, we've basically said we only want the contains, the starts with, this week, this month, and greater than from the ones provided by AdapTable to be available. So now if I save this, and if I go back to my grid, we can see now we've only got contains and starts with for strings. We've only now got the greater than for new numbers, and I think it was just this week and this month for date. So you've got total control over which of the filters AdapTable provides are available in your grid. But of course, you might want the opposite. You might not only want the ones which AdapTable gives you, but you might want to provide your own custom filters. So in fact, let's undo the thing we commented out just to kind of put them all back. So for example, let's imagine in country, you're always interested in Canada and USA. It's a bit of a pain to have to kind of do that. We've still got auto, we've still got apply filter, but essentially you're having to do that each and every time you want to run that filter. So you might want a North America filter, which essentially allows you to do that. And of course you can do that in AdapTable, and they're called custom predicates. It's a quite a complicated topic, so it's really worth its own video. But just to look at it quickly, essentially what happens is you provide us with this predicate object. You have an ID and a label. You say where it appears. So here we're saying it appears in filter, but you can also say it can appear in format columns, in alerts, etc., etc. And you can provide the scope. So you can either say it works in all string columns, all number columns, or you can just list the columns. In this example here, we're saying we only want it to appear in the country column. And then obviously the most important element is this handler function here. This is a function that you provide and which Adaptable will invoke each and every time the predicate gets used. So let's turn off auto apply filter. So for instance now, and let's turn off this as well. So if I now save this, we should now see in the country column a new predicate called North America. And there we are. If I go into country, you can now see there it is. It's at the bottom, North America. And when I select it, my grid immediately just shows me Canada and United States. And obviously you can add as many of these as you want, which matches your requirements. So there we are. There's a lot more you can do in filters. I've only probably shown you a small section of some of the options, but hopefully you get a sense of the richness that we provide, the flexibility that's on offer, and most importantly, the extensibility so that you can add your own filters, you can add your own predicates in order to provide your users with exactly the business logic that they require. As always, thank you for watching. If you'd like a personalized one-to-one demo, we'd be delighted to give you one. Or if you'd like to try out Adaptable for yourself with your own data and use cases, please get in touch and we'll be happy to give you a no obligation free trial license. Thank you for watching.